Hello everyone, my name is Nat. I'm from Technasia and welcome to our Road to PDC sharing session. This is a series of online events prior to the Technasia Product Development Conference 2021 that will be held on April 7 and 8, that's just next week, where we will be inviting professionals and experts in product development to talk about their insights, their experience, and share trade secrets in product strategy, engineering, growth, analytics, operations, and more to help you solve challenges relevant to your work. But today, as a bit of a teaser for what's to come, we're going to start with a presentation followed by a Q&A segment with the audience. So if you have any questions throughout, just send them in the chat down below and we will answer it right after the session. Now, you're probably all wondering, what are we doing today? So, well, we'll be discussing what does cloud native mean for the enterprise. I don't want to spoil it any further, so let me introduce you to our speaker, Wendie Chong, Senior Product Marketing Manager of Suse.
Hi everyone, I'm Wendie, the Senior Global Product Marketing Manager at Suse, and I look after the Cloud Native Solution portfolio. Welcome to today's session, Cloud Native for the Enterprise. We'll be covering the state of play of the container and Kubernetes ecosystem, as well as introducing this wonderful audience to Suse Rancher, the market's leading Kubernetes management platform. So let's get started. So the cloud in 2021, working and living in today's modern world, we often forget that we are constantly connected. The cloud powers the modern economy across every single industry, from connecting supply chains to business analysts to data analytics, e-commerce platforms, the Internet of Things devices, machinery, to our cars, to our mobile phones, to our applications in those phones. All of those industries have a single key focus. It's to connect companies to their consumers and make their customers the center of their business operations. The fastest digital businesses of today are creating seamless customer experiences with the cloud. So it's no wonder that the cloud-powered digital transformations have been a key agenda for CIOs around the world in 2020 and in 2021. So what's required for an organization to shift to the cloud and take a cloud-native approach in their strategy? And what does cloud-native even mean for the enterprise? Let's take a step back. 10 years ago, we saw enterprises around the globe rapidly move their on-prem data centers into new public cloud providers, all with the assumption to reduce costs and modernize their infrastructure strategy and stack. This entire shift has created a completely new ecosystem for thousands of these new cloud-native solutions to build teams like developers and IT operators, build better applications in this new hyper-connected economy. All of these cloud-native solutions are designed, built, and optimized for use in today's cloud. With this in mind, there are three key areas for enterprise organizations to focus on within a cloud-native strategy. That's design, development style, and infrastructure. Let's dig into them a little bit deeper and start off with design. So with design, enterprise users need to ask themselves, how can my organization allow for speed and agility in a world where change is now constant and permanent? Am I moving from monolithic stacks to microservices and serverless-driven architecture? What does that mean? What supporting technology solutions do I need to make that transition as smooth and as trouble-free as possible? For development style, we need to look at what is our customer feedback relay? Do we even have a customer feedback relay? Is continuous feedback from our consumers valuable? Is there a new way we can integrate that feedback into the workings of our developers and IT operations teams? Can we gain competitive advantage with all of these new feedback processes? And will rapid updates and feature releases help us with this style? And finally, it's infrastructure. How do we build automation, scalability, portability, and predictability across our infrastructure stack? How important is solutions that offer infrastructure as a code? And how can we implement containerized applications? With all of this in mind, CloudNative is a massive strategy for enterprise users to start looking into. But why container critical and a priority for users in today's modern technology ecosystem? We now know that containers are a critical IT priority. Even with its complexities, containers are growing in its popularity. More than 60% of developers have used containers for software development, and containers continue to be a top priority for IT leaders, according to Forrester's research. That said, we are only at the beginning of a massive adoption of container-based applications across enterprise organizations around the world. Less than 10% of applications are currently containerized, and there is a mammoth expected growth of more than 50% in container adoption for new projects by the end of 2021. It's safe to say containers are on the rise and here to stay. So what are we trying to achieve with containers? As containers grow in popularity, they are helping enterprises innovate faster, achieve consistency, and build scalability across their infrastructure. Application teams are able to innovate faster, allowing businesses to bring their world-class applications to their consumers quickly. Teams can achieve constant, immutable operations, ensuring greater predictability, security, and reduced dependencies, enabling maximum portability, flexibility, and scalability are possible. There are three primary use cases for containers, and we're seeing containers being deployed across these scenarios. The first one is building new cloud-native applications, fast, scalable, and mostly customer-facing in order to compete in the rapidly changing market. We're also seeing containers used to modernize and scale infrastructure efficiently. This is where cost of running applications are optimized, scaled, and resiliency is built and designed specifically into the ecosystem. We're also seeing users use containers to re-architect their traditional monolithic applications, where containers are helping redesign, rehost parts of traditional apps that are too big or often too complex to be replaced. There's also three emerging use cases as well that are quite interesting. These are growing rapidly in popularity in the last 24 months. The first one is core business applications are modernizing applications with APIs and microservices. Secondly, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics on bare metal infrastructure are used. Containers are used for greater performance compared to virtual machines, and containers are used at distributed edge computing to help build connectivity and device intelligence to applications and devices at the edge. So the big question is, who should own a containerized strategy? As containers grow in popularity, structure strategy. Many enterprises today are trying to come to terms with which team should own the containerized strategy. Is it the apps team themselves or the emerging DevOps functions? Or is it the traditional IT operations and architects? Is it the guys that own the cloud infrastructure strategy or the guys that are in the innovation group? Let's explore that a little bit more. In 2019, Diamanti did a container surveys to identify which teams within a business unit leads in their container strategy development. Interestingly, as more and more containers are being deployed into production, we're seeing a growth of IT ops personnel becoming more responsible for the overall infrastructure ecosystem and environment within an enterprise organization. However, architects, developers, DevOps engineers are still primary drivers of Kubernetes adoption, followed by the IT operations team. How an enterprise organization decides to implement the responsibility of containers is dependent on what the organization's structure is and how that enterprise organization development cycle operates. So it is important to note that there is no wrong or right in terms of who should be responsible for a containerized strategy and where. It's all dependent on how your own enterprise organization is set up. So let's move on. So let's move on to Kubernetes. How does this relate to containers and why Kubernetes? Let's start by understanding why Kubernetes is such a transformative technology. To simply put it, Kubernetes is enabling a common computing platform across any infrastructure by automating the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. To put it simply, it's helping teams manage their ever-growing amount of containers as they look to transform their infrastructure strategy. With Kubernetes, users can architect and build containerized applications that will run anywhere, from a developer's laptop to servers in your on-prem data center to any public cloud provider, or in branch or at any edge remote location. On top of that, the benefits of Kubernetes is also that it sets a consistent infrastructure capabilities, including load balancing, security policies, backup, recovery, networking, and access control. Plus, Kubernetes' open nature has helped foster an extensive community of users and created a number of new cloud-native solutions to address and solve technical roadblocks that are now commonly faced by Kubernetes users. There are a number of benefits of Kubernetes. Let's walk through the organizational benefits first. The technical arguments for Kubernetes is really interesting, but for enterprise organizations, its bottom line matters most. We always want to maximize performance at the lowest cost. And we're always searching for that intersection between value for a team versus impact across the business. So there are 4 key organizational benefits for Kubernetes. The first one is that it increases velocity. Kubernetes enables your business to adapt to changes in the environment and push out changes to your applications quickly as soon as your team develops them and tests them. It makes it easy to design a system where changes can go out without any downtime to your organization at all. You can span your business benefits. Kubernetes is finding a home in businesses of all kinds, from telco to service providers to retail to manufacturing. The list is endless. All of these businesses have found value in Kubernetes, making their businesses more successful because of the agility and the scalability that the computing platform provides. Kubernetes allows vendors to avoid lock-in. Kubernetes is open source, and it became the second largest open source project in 2018. As of October 2018, it had 24,500 contributors across more than 100 companies. Today, that number is much, much higher. As long as your business is using an open source version of Kubernetes that's certified by the CNCF, your projects will never find themselves starving for a framework or abandoned by its original creators. There is always a support and a community behind the open source itself. And finally, Kubernetes enables you to reduce costs. Kubernetes maximizes your investment in infrastructure, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. If you choose to run applications inside of a hosted Kubernetes environment, such as AWS EKS, Google Cloud's GKE, or Azure's AKS, you're already starting to reduce your infrastructure footprint and benefiting from the cloud model of paying for what you use. Maximum density. And if any application needs additional resources, Kubernetes automatically scales that resources and uses the underlying infrastructure up and down to meet your need. You're only really paying for what you use, and you're making sure you're using exactly what you need at any given moment. Now let's explore the user benefits. So you're a developer or a software engineer. You want stability, but you also want agility. You're searching for a solution that automates human tasks while still following the instructions set by the humans that control it. So the first user benefit is it integrates with deployment systems. Kubernetes is completely driven by its API. Your continuous integration and continuous development system can communicate with Kubernetes. You can build staging environments. You can deploy new releases. You can perform stage rollouts. It is completely a seamless way to integrate and guarantee that deployment tasks will be executed the same way every time without human error. Users of Kubernetes can also recover from failures. is running within it, performing readiness and health checks via the TCP, HTTP, or running a command within the container. Only healthy, and those that fail a health check for too long will be restarted by Kubernetes and moved to other nodes in the cluster. It's helping users scale automatically. No longer are the days of ramping up server capacity in anticipation of surge traffic. Kubernetes is ready. It's ready for a viral story. It's ready for a big box retail sales event on your retail platform. It scales by deploying more copies of the pod that run your application, or it can allocate more host resources to application when spawning more doesn't make sense. It can even scale the cluster size up if you deploy more resources than the current cluster can safely handle, or downsize when those resources are no longer needed. And finally, it can handle microservices. Kubernetes turns the promise of cloud computing into a reality. You don't need to know, care, or pay attention to where your resources are running. You can control scheduling if you wish, but Kubernetes makes everything available by default. It handles the internal wiring between pod replicas, the common IP address that load balances across them, and the external addresses that make those resources accessible to the world. Plus, it adds and removes resources to keep these applications available as the number of replicas grow or shrink, or as the application failures occur. When you deploy a microservices style application into Kubernetes, it builds and maintains all of the routing and communication paths for you, no matter what your node application lands on. And finally, let's cover the availability benefits of Kubernetes. As we mentioned before, containers are everywhere. So Kubernetes is everywhere. It's providing a common computing platform for any substrate, whether on-prem, in cloud, or at the edge. Hosted solutions. Management platforms like Rancher are treating any certified Kubernetes distributions as first-class citizens, including Amazon's EKS, Microsoft's AKS, and Google Cloud's GKE. Platform providers. Kubernetes management platforms from global vendors, including Rancher, allow for the consistent deployment, management, and securing of multiple clusters and multiple clouds. And finally, the advantages of multi-cloud management. Platforms like Rancher are allowing the management of Kubernetes clusters across any major cloud platforms, including AWS, Azure Cloud, and Google Cloud. Let's move on and look at the landscape that the open source Kubernetes ecosystem has created. Many of you may recognize this diagram. It is an insanely complex ecosystem as the Kubernetes ecosystem has grown. In the space of less than 10 years, this is now the landscape we're working with. How does such complexity across so many solutions? Thankfully, there are many options to help your organizations manage that innovation chaos. There are 3 ways to kind of utilize Kubernetes and manage the innovation chaos around Kubernetes. Firstly, you can build your own. Customize your distribution to meet, customize your clusters to meet your requirements. It can be a mix of tools, a mix of distributions, a mix of manual processes, but it can be difficult to scale. The second option is to leverage open source solutions like OKD, DCOS, and Rancher. These solutions provide a little bit more structure and allow users to scale effectively without the manual processes and customization that is often needed with a build your own design. And finally, there's the commercial way to manage it. There are multiple players in this space fit for enterprise organizations. Rancher, all of these solutions offer support to help enterprise users scale and manage the Kubernetes innovation chaos efficiently. So let's address the needs of the developer and the IT operator who are most likely to be engaged or using Kubernetes across their technology stack. Whichever Kubernetes distribution or management tool you choose, developers and IT ops need to ensure that it's supported any infrastructure as well as delivers a unified authentication, simplified cluster operation, and manages multi-cluster application. It is paramount that the needs of both the developers, a system admin, or an IT operational personnel is addressed when implementing a Kubernetes strategy. So let's explore how Rancher can help address these needs and build the scalability needed to operate Kubernetes effectively. Why Rancher? Rancher is the most widely adopted enterprise Kubernetes management platform available on the market today. It's got over 100 million downloads. It's got 400 plus enterprise customers. It's a member of the CNCF, the CloudNative Computing Foundation, and we're a heavy contributor to the CNCF by another open source leader, Suse, in 2020, indicating its commitment to growing the open source community. We have partnerships with leading cloud providers and a broad industry of adoption spanning from automotive to manufacturing to telcos all around the world. Rancher is a Forrester New Wave leader. Our container management platform scores highly year on year across other competitors in the container development platform space. As an open source solution, we're coming head to head with other closed source proprietary solutions like Red Hat, Google, and VMware. For a developer or a IT ops personnel, it's safe to say you'd like to know where Rancher belongs in the overall technology stack within a company. As a Kubernetes management platform, Rancher will sit on top of your certified Kubernetes clusters, whether it's on-prem, in the cloud, or at the edge. Depending on your team and your organization's cloud strategy, Rancher adds value by its ability to centralize and simplify complex operations of Kubernetes. Rancher unifies these clusters to ensure consistent operations, workload management, and enterprise-grade security. Let's expand a bit on what a Kubernetes strategy would look like with Rancher. When we look at implementing a Kubernetes strategy, there are two pillars that we have to consider for a successful strategy. The first one is using a certified Kubernetes distribution. The second one is to centralize the management of these Kubernetes distributions. So let's expand on that and see how it looks in more detail. Rancher enables production quality Kubernetes everywhere. In this slide, we can see that Kubernetes environments mature as there are multiple applications and solutions that formulate a successful enterprise strategy. Make sure we're using a certified Kubernetes distribution. In order to be able to compute everywhere, you need to deploy a certified Kubernetes distribution everywhere you need to compute, whether that's in the data center, in the cloud, across desktops, across a branch, or at edge locations. Secondly, you need to deploy a centralized management control plane that delivers on, firstly, consistent cluster operations, enabling IT ops teams to manage all of their certified Kubernetes distribution with a consistent interface, regardless of who developed the distribution or where the distribution runs. There should be security, policy, and user management features. This enables teams to automate processes and apply a consistent set of user access and security policies and processes so all of your clusters are secure no matter where they are running. Thirdly, there should be a plethora of shared tools and services. Any Kubernetes management platform needs to person. A Kubernetes strategy should encompass the benefits for both of these personas. IT ops should be able to centrally provision Kubernetes services whilst maintaining full control and visibility of resources, clusters, and the security performance of the infrastructure. In turn, the provision services should be available to DevOps. DevOps should be able to use Kubernetes via a management platform like Rancher to efficiently build, deploy, and manage their fully featured containerized application. The end result is IT operational personnel should be able to get what they need, DevOps teams should be able to get what they need, and the organization has a holistic, beneficial Kubernetes strategy where IT operation folks are able to maintain control visibility and DevOps teams are able to build at speed and at scale. Part of using a cloud native solution stack is the integration they have with other cloud native solutions within the ecosystem. As we mentioned before, having a network of shared tools and services is vital. And from what we can see on screen, Rancher has an extensive full stack of support across the Kubernetes ecosystem, delivering value to our customers through our network of certified vendors. So let's cover what's new in Rancher. What have we recently announced? With our latest updates, there are kind of 4 key things that we've announced. Firstly, it's now super easy for single cluster deployments, as users now have the same benefits as our multi-cluster users on the platform. That means simplified cloud operations, enterprise-grade security, and easy access to our cloud-native ecosystem via our application catalog. We've strengthened our partnership with Amazon, and we're making management of AWS EKS clusters even easier. Although the AWS console is excellent in itself, most of the lifecycle management features need to be met with manual configuration.
That's about. For the first 50 people to fill in Suse's survey, we will show this QR code on screen and put in the YouTube chat. You get to win $10 worth of Grab vouchers. So first 50 people, so go ahead and scan that QR code. Go ahead and scan one for me, and you can get $10 worth of Grab vouchers. Second thing I need to talk to you about, Road to PDC. As an attendee, you can get tickets to our actual product development conference next week for only $15. That's right, you get to save $35 on your ticket purchase. So grab your ticket right now at pdc.technasia.com/road2. That's ROADTO, and apply the coupon code ROAD2PDC. That's ROADTOPDC. Again, ROADTOPDC, Road to PDC, and enjoy $15 tickets to our product development conference next week. Now we're going to go to the Q&A. So for this segment, answering all of your questions, we're going to have Derek So, the principal technologist from Suse. Hi, Derek. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Ned. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. I think we have a few questions. I think we have a few questions trying to come in, but I have a few questions for you myself.
Sure.
So my first question actually is, can Kubernetes actually be beneficial for small companies?
Yes, it does. Indeed, it's not only about the size of the company. It's also applicable to almost across all different kinds of industry. We see there are some startup, they have been using Kubernetes a lot to accelerate their product prototyping, and then they can build their business very quickly to validate their idea and go to market quickly by enabling their team in the DevOps environment, and Rancher and Kubernetes in their industry, like doing cool things for the edge computing, for the IoT application. There are many use cases around it. So the short answer to your question is yes, it's definitely helpful for small companies.
Right. Okay. So I appreciate you also giving me the long answer as well. Thank you so much for that. I have a follow-up question, which is how long does it actually take to provision K8 Kubernetes clusters?
Well, as we mentioned before, Rancher has been managing Kubernetes the whole management lifecycle at there. So what we have seen for a typical small cluster running on the VM is just cost about 10 minutes to build up a cluster of 6 nodes, including the 3 master nodes and the 3 worker nodes. No matter it's on-prem or see people automate it even further to make it take down to a few minutes to make it happen. It really depends on their use cases, but it's definitely possible. But if you're talking about the K3s, our lightweight Kubernetes distro at Rancher, it takes only 1 minute to build it up. So it's a very easy task for Rancher to handle it.
Right, right. So less than 1 minute. That's pretty cool. Okay. One last question from me, I promise, and then we're gonna go to questions from our audience. Can you actually share with us a use case of Kubernetes that you have on hand, maybe to illustrate it better for our less technical savvy people like me?
Sure. We see, as you know, a lot of companies, like in the financial sector, for instance, they are trying to engage with the customer in a more engaging way through the digital space, like doing the e-banking. As you now, you can use your mobile phone to do it. And now you can do even more banking services. You can even do much more wider options of banking services from your preferred bank, anywhere through the web or through the mobile. All this are enabled by Kubernetes. They run their services on Kubernetes, turn all their banking services into the next level e-banking services powered by Kubernetes. And then at the back, they simplify the operations by adopting Rancher. We have some customers in the financial sector taking advantage of Rancher to help them to simplify their operation, accelerate their development life cycle for their team to push more relevant and useful digital experience, banking experience to their customers. So all these are behind the scene what Rancher and Kubernetes can do as your experience the high-tech or easy-to-use digital banking experience as you're using today.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much for explaining that. We do any best practices that you can recommend for Kubernetes monitoring?
For Kubernetes monitoring,
yes,
we do. One of the practices that we have is to adopt the CNCF, their open source technology for monitoring. It's called Prometheus, and they also come with the Grafana. There are a lot of practices around it from this community. And also, at Rancher, if you look at the marketplace, we also make it easy for the Kubernetes operator to simply have a one-click button, just like choosing from the App Store, to enable monitoring with the best practice configurations out of the box to monitor their Kubernetes to start with, and then they can customize from there. So we recommend using Prometheus and Grafana to get started to monitor their Kubernetes clusters.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek, for explaining all of that to me and taking the time to answer all of my questions. Thanks for stopping by. But I think that's all the time that we have for today. So thanks for the great discussion. And I guess thank you as well to Wendie for the wonderful presentation earlier. And thanks to the bigger Suse team. So for everybody watching, that was Derek. So I'm Nat. And don't forget, before we sign off, I want to remind you to fill in Suse's survey to get the Grab vouchers. Just scan this QR code and you get $10 worth of Grab vouchers, only for the first 50 people, so you gotta be fast. And the second thing, make sure you take your Road to PDC special price tickets, only $15 for our product development conference next week. You're saving $35 off your ticket purchase, and you only get this because you attended this session today, so congratulations to you. So go ahead and go to pdc.techinasia.com and use the coupon code ROAD2PDC to enjoy the offer. And that's all for today. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you being here, taking the time in your afternoon to listen to us. Do not forget to join the Product Development Conference next week, and we will all see you there. Take care.
Thank you. See you next time.